Discovery and rescue. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Captain Elara Vance as she piloted her small exploration vessel, the Stargazer, through an uncharted sector of the galaxy. Her mission was simple: map new star systems and search for signs of intelligent life. After months of solitude, broken only by occasional communications with Earth, Elara was beginning to wonder if she'd ever find anything of significance. As the Stargazer drifted past a nondescript planetoid, a faint energy signature caught Elara's attention. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the readout. "Computer, analyze that energy signature," she commanded, her voice cutting through the silence of the cockpit. Analysis complete, the AI responded moments later. Energy signature consistent with artificial power generation. Recommend closer investigation. Elara's heart raced with excitement. This could be it. The discovery she'd been waiting for. She carefully maneuvered the Stargazer towards the planetoid, using the ship's advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. As she approached, the source of the energy signature became clear. A structure nestled within a crater, its metallic surface gleaming under the light of a distant sun. It was unmistakably artificial, and definitely not of human origin. First contact, Elara whispered to herself, a mix of awe and apprehension in her voice. She engaged the ship's landing sequence, touching down a safe distance from the structure. After donning her exosuit and running through safety protocols, Elara stepped out onto the planetoid's surface. The low gravity made her movements feel awkward and bouncy, but she quickly adjusted. She approached the structure cautiously, her suit's sensors constantly scanning for any signs of danger. As she got closer, Elara noticed something odd about the building. It appeared to be in a state of disrepair, with sections of its outer shell crumbling away. "This place looks abandoned," she muttered into her comm, recording her observations for later analysis. Finding an airlock that seemed functional, Elara used her suit's advanced hacking module to bypass the security systems. With a hiss of equalizing pressure, the door slid open, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Elara stepped inside, her helmet lights illuminating the way. The interior of the facility was a maze of corridors and rooms, most filled with equipment she couldn't begin to comprehend. But it wasn't the alien technology that made her pause. It was the smell. Even through her suit's filters, a nauseating stench permeated the air. Following the odor, Elara found herself in what appeared to be a laboratory. Cages lined the walls, most empty, but one contained something alive. Approaching cautiously, Elara gasped at what she saw. Curled up in the corner of a filthy cage was a creature unlike anything she'd ever seen or imagined. Its body, once perhaps sleek and beautiful, was now encased in a thick layer of hardened waste. Only its large, luminous eyes seemed free of the horrific coating, and they stared at Elara with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. "Oh my God," Elara breathed, her mind racing. The creature was clearly sentient. Its eyes held too much intelligence for it to be anything else, and it had been mistreated, horrifically so. Without hesitation, Elara knew what she had to do. "I'm getting you out of here," she said to the creature, not knowing if it could understand her words, but hoping it could sense her intentions. She examined the cage, finding an electronic lock similar to the one on the airlock. Once again, her hacking module proved invaluable, and soon the cage door swung open. The creature didn't move at first, seemingly too weak or too frightened. Elara knelt down, holding out her hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "I'm here to help you." Slowly, painfully, the creature uncurled itself and took a tentative step towards Elara. Its movement caused some of the hardened waste to crack and fall away, revealing patches of iridescent skin underneath. With gentle movements, Elara helped the creature out of the cage. It was lighter than she expected, despite its coating of filth. As she cradled it in her arms, she felt a tremor run through its body. Whether from fear or relief, she couldn't tell. "Let's get you out of here," Elara said, her voice filled with determination. She made her way back through the facility, her mind buzzing with questions. Who had built this place? Why had they treated this creature so cruelly? And what would she do now? As they emerged from the structure, the creature in Ilara's arms stirred, its eyes widening at the sight of the open sky. A soft, melodic sound escaped its throat, the first noise Ilara had heard it make. "That's right," Ilara said, smiling behind her helmet. "You're free now." She carried the creature to the Stargazer, her mind already racing with plans. She'd need to set up a quarantine area, find a way to clean the creature without hurting it, figure out what it could eat. But those were problems for later. Right now, all that mattered was getting off this rock and as far away from this nightmarish facility as possible. As the Stargazer's engines roared to life, Ilara felt a mix of emotions wash over her: excitement at her discovery, anger at the creature's mistreatment, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. She had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but one thing was certain: her life, and the course of human history, had just changed forever. The Stargazer lifted off, leaving behind the abandoned facility and carrying with it a new chapter in the story of humanity's place in the universe. As the stars streaked by on the view screen, Ilara looked down at the creature curled up in the makeshift bed she'd prepared. Its eyes met hers, and in that moment, she made a silent promise. Whatever it took, she would protect this being and uncover the truth behind its imprisonment. With a deep breath, Ilara set course for the nearest human outpost. The real adventure, she realized, was only just beginning. "Thank you for your response. Since you've replied with C, I'm not sure if you have a specific question or if you'd like me to continue with the story. If you'd like me to write the next part of the story, Part 2, Building Trust, please let me know. Otherwise, if you have any specific questions or requests about the story or outline, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to help. I understand you've replied with C again. Since I'm not sure what specific instruction or question you have, I'll continue with the story by providing Part 2, Building Trust. This part will focus on caring for the rescued alien, learning to communicate, and uncovering its backstory. Part 2, Building Trust. Captain Ilara Vance sat in the cockpit of the Stargazer, her eyes fixed on the stars streaking by in the view screen. Her mind, however, was elsewhere, specifically in the makeshift quarantine bay she'd set up in the ship's cargo hold. It had been 3 days since she'd rescued the alien creature from that nightmarish facility, and she was no closer to understanding what it was or where it came from. A soft beep from the console drew her attention. "Captain," the ship's AI announced, "the quarantine bay's atmospheric composition has stabilized. It is now safe to enter without an exosuit." Ilara's heart quickened. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. "Thanks, AI," she replied, referring to the AI by name. "Keep the ship on course. I'm going to check on our guest." As she made her way to the cargo hold, Ilara's mind raced with questions. Would the creature be afraid of her? Would it be hostile? Could they communicate at all? She paused at the airlock, took a deep breath, and stepped inside. The sight that greeted her was both heartening and pitiful. The alien lay in a shallow pool of nutrient-rich water, its body mostly submerged. The hardened waste that had encased it was slowly dissolving, revealing more of its iridescent skin. Its large, luminous eyes fixed on Ilara as she entered. "Hey there," Ilara said softly, approaching slowly. "How are you feeling?" The creature made a soft, trilling sound, neither fearful nor aggressive, but curious. Ilara took that as a good sign and knelt beside the pool. "I'm Ilara," she said, pointing to herself. "Ilara." She repeated her name slowly, then pointed to the creature, raising her eyebrows in question. The alien blinked, then made a series of melodic chirps and whistles. Ilara couldn't hope to replicate the sound, but she nodded encouragingly. "It's nice to meet you," she said with a smile. "I'm sorry I can't pronounce your name yet, but I'm working on a translation program. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk properly soon." Over the next few hours, Ilara worked tirelessly. She helped clean the last of the filth from the alien's body, marveling at the beautiful patterns on its skin. She offered various foods, carefully noting which ones the creature seemed to enjoy and which it rejected. All the while, she talked, explaining what she was doing and asking questions, even though she knew the alien couldn't understand her words. As the ship's day cycle dimmed to simulate night, Ilara noticed the alien looking drowsy. "Time for rest," she said softly. "I'll be back soon, I promise." Before leaving, she set up a holographic display next to the pool. It showed a simple language learning program she'd developed, displaying images of common objects alongside their written and spoken human words. She had no idea if it would help, but it was worth a try. The next morning, Ilara returned to find the alien chirping excitedly at the holographic display. As she watched in amazement, it pointed to an image of a star, then made a sound remarkably similar to the word star from the audio playback. "You're learning our language," Ilara breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "You're incredible." Over the next few days, progress was rapid. The alien, which Ilara had started calling Lumi due to its luminescent eyes, showed an astonishing ability to absorb information. By the end of the week, they were able to have simple conversations. "Ilara," Lumi chirped one day, its voice a melodious version of human speech. "Why help me?" Ilara paused, considering her words carefully. "Because it was the right thing to do," she said finally. "No one deserves to suffer like you did. Can you tell me what happened to you?" Lumi's eyes dimmed slightly, a sign Ilara had learned to associate with sadness. "My people, explorers, like you, we find new worlds, new life. But bad ones find us, take us, study us, hurt us." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. "The facility where I found you, there were other cages. Were there more of your people there?" Lumi made a low, mournful sound. "Yes, many, but gone now. Only Lumi left." Ilara's heart ached for the alien. She reached out, gently placing her hand on Lumi's shoulder in a gesture of comfort. To her surprise, Lumi leaned into the touch, its skin warm and slightly vibrating beneath her fingers. "I'm so sorry, Lumi," Ilara said softly. "I promise you, we'll find out who did this. We'll make sure it never happens again." Lumi's eyes brightened slightly. "Ilara different. Ilara kind. Maybe. Not all bad out here." As the days passed, Ilara learned more about Lumi's people. They were a peaceful, curious species, advanced in ways humans could barely comprehend. Their technology was biological, grown rather than built. Their ships were living things, capable of traversing vast distances by folding space itself. "Is that how you came so far from your home?" Ilara asked, fascinated. Lumi nodded. "Yes. We travel far, see much, but risky, sometimes find danger." Ilara nodded grimly. She was beginning to understand the enormity of what she'd stumbled into. There were forces out in the galaxy far beyond humanity's current understanding. Some wonderful, some terrifying. As they talked, Ilara noticed Lumi becoming more animated, more like the being it must have been before its imprisonment. It asked countless questions about humans, Earth, and the Stargazer. Ilara found herself explaining concepts she'd always taken for granted, seeing her own species through new eyes. One day, as they were discussing the ship's propulsion systems, an alarm blared through the Stargazer. Ilara jumped to her feet, rushing to a nearby console. "ARIA, report," she barked. The AI's calm voice filled the room. "Captain, we are being pursued by an unidentified vessel. Its energy signature matches that of the facility where we found Lumi." Ilara's blood ran cold. She looked at Lumi, seeing her own fear reflected in those luminous eyes. "They've found us," Lumi whispered. Ilara's jaw set in determination. "Maybe so," she said, her voice hard. "But they're not getting you back. Not while I'm breathing." She turned back to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. "ARIA, Plot an evasive course. We're getting out of here. As the Stargazer's engines roared to life, accelerating the ship to speeds it was never meant to achieve, Ilara felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The quiet exploration mission she'd set out on had turned into something far more dangerous and far more important. She looked at Lumi, who was watching her with a mixture of trust and apprehension. "Don't worry," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "We're in this together now. Whatever happens, we face it as a team." Lumi's skin rippled with colors, a gesture Ilara had learned to interpret as agreement. As the pursuing ship grew closer on the sensors, Ilara steeled herself for what was to come. The real test, she realized, was just beginning. Pursuit and escape. The Stargazer shuddered as another energy blast grazed its hull. Captain Ilara Vance gritted her teeth, her hands dancing over the ship's controls with practiced precision. Behind her, Lumi watched with wide, frightened eyes, its luminescent skin pulsing with anxiety. "Araya. Status report." Ilara barked, narrowly avoiding another blast from their pursuers. The AI's calm voice contrasted sharply with the chaos around them. "Hull integrity at 78% and falling, Captain. The pursuing vessel's weaponry significantly outclasses our own. At current velocities, they will overtake us in approximately 17 minutes." Ilara cursed under her breath. The Stargazer was an exploration vessel, not a warship. It was never meant for this kind of confrontation. She needed a plan, and fast. "Lumi," she called over her shoulder, "you said your people can fold space for travel. Is there any way we can use that technology?" Lumi's skin rippled with colors. A gesture Ilara had learned indicated deep thought. "Maybe," the alien chirped, its melodious voice tinged with uncertainty. "But Stargazer are not made for it. Could be dangerous. More dangerous than being caught by those bastards." Ilara retorted, gesturing at the menacing ship on their tail. Lumi conceded the point with a soft trill. "Need materials. Organic compounds. Living things." Ilara's mind raced. "The hydroponics bay. We have plants there for long-term oxygen recycling. Would that work?" Lumi's eyes brightened. "Yes, good start. Need more." Lumi's secretions might help. Under different circumstances, Ilara might have laughed at the awkward phrasing. Now she just nodded grimly. "All right. Tell me what to do." The next few minutes were a blur of activity. As Aria piloted the ship, executing evasive maneuvers to buy them time, Ilara and Lumi worked frantically in the hydroponics bay. Following Lumi's instructions, Ilara uprooted plants and mixed them with a viscous fluid the alien produced from glands on its skin. The resulting paste was spread over key points on the ship's hull, forming intricate, organic-looking patterns. "Now what?" Ilara asked, wiping sweat from her brow as they finished. "Need power," Lumi explained. "Much power. All ship has." Ilara nodded, already moving towards the engine room. "Araya, prepare to divert all power to the hull on my mark. That includes life support. We'll be running on emergency reserves." "Understood, Captain," the AI responded. "I must warn you, this course of action carries significant risks." "Noted," Ilara said grimly. "But we're out of options." Back in the cockpit, Ilara took manual control of the ship. The pursuing vessel was closing in, its weapons charging for what could be a final devastating blow. "Lumi, whatever you're going to do it now," Ilara shouted. The alien placed its hands on the organic paste that spread on the control panel. Its skin began to glow brightly, pulsing with an inner light that seemed to spread through the strange substance. "Now, Araya," Ilara commanded. The ship's lights dimmed as all power was diverted to the hull. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly, the view screen erupted with a kaleidoscope of colors. Ilara felt a sensation like her entire body was being stretched and compressed simultaneously. The pursuing ship fired, its energy blast streaking towards them. and then vanishing as the stargazer seemingly blinked out of existence. When Ilara's vision cleared, she gasped. The starfield outside had completely changed. Where moments ago they'd been in open space, they were now in the midst of a dense asteroid field. Holy shit, Ilara breathed. It worked. Lumi, you did it. But her elation was short-lived. A proximity alarm blared, and Ilara's hands flew back to the controls. They might have escaped their pursuers, but they jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire. ARIA, restore power to engines and navigation. Ilara ordered, already beginning to weave the ship through the deadly field of space rocks. The next hour was the most intense flying of Ilara's life. The asteroid field was incredibly dense, with chunks of rock ranging from the size of her fist to small moons. Each maneuver had to be perfect, each decision made in a split second. Lumi watched in awe as Ilara guided the ship through the cosmic obstacle course. The human's face was a mask of concentration, her eyes darting from the view screen to the sensor readouts and back again. Despite the danger, there was a glimmer of exhilaration in her eyes. This, Lumi realized, was what humans lived for. The thrill of the unknown, the rush of overcoming impossible odds. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they emerged from the other side of the asteroid field. Ilara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding, slumping back in her chair. "We made it," she said, her voice a mixture of exhaustion and disbelief. Lumi chirped happily, its skin pulsing with bright colors. "Ilara, amazing. Never see flying like that." Ilara managed a tired smile. "Thanks, Lumi. And thank you for getting us out of there. I don't know how you did it, but you saved our lives." As the adrenaline of their escape began to fade, new questions arose in Ilara's mind. Where exactly were they? How far had they traveled? And most importantly, were they truly safe from their pursuers? "Aria," she called out. "Can you determine our location?" There was a pause before the AI responded. "Captain, I'm afraid I have some unusual news. According to my calculations based on stellar positioning, we are approximately 10,000 light-years from our previous location." Ilara's jaw dropped. She turned to Lumi, who looked equally shocked. Is that normal for your method of travel?" Lumi's skin rippled with uncertainty. "No, never go so far. Must be interaction with ship technology. Unexpected." Ilara leaned back in her chair, trying to process this information. They were farther from Earth than any human had ever been, in a completely uncharted part of the galaxy. The enormity of their situation began to sink in. But as she looked at Lumi, saw the trust and wonder in its eyes, Ilara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were explorers, both of them, thrown together by circumstance, but united by a shared curiosity about the universe. "Well," Ilara said, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth, "I always wanted to see the galaxy. Looks like I'm getting my wish." Lumi's skin brightened in response, and Ilara felt a surge of affection for her alien companion. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As the stargazer drifted through unknown space, its crew of two settled in for the next phase of their journey. They were lost, yes, but they were free. And in that freedom, they had found something precious, a friendship that transcended the boundaries of species and space itself. Alien homeworld. Days turned into weeks as the stargazer journeyed through uncharted space. Captain Ilara Vance and Lumi spent their time repairing the ship, studying the stars around them, and learning more about each other's cultures. Their unlikely friendship deepened with each passing day. One quiet afternoon, as Ilara was recalibrating the long-range sensors, Lumi let out a sudden melodious trill that startled her. "Ilara, Ilara, look." The alien's skin was pulsing with excitement, its luminescent eyes fixed on the view screen. Ilara looked up, her breath catching in her throat. In the distance, a planet shimmered like an opal against the backdrop of space. Its surface seemed to shift and change, clouds of iridescent color swirling across continents of deep blue and violet. Is that? Ilara began, hardly daring to believe it. Lumi nodded, its voice thick with emotion. Home. My world. Lumina. As they approached the planet, Ilara's sensors began picking up signals. Complex patterns of light and energy danced across her screens, unlike anything she'd ever seen before. Your people's technology? She asked, fascinated. Lumi nodded, but its expression was troubled. Yes, but strange, different, wrong. Ilara frowned. What do you mean wrong? Before Lumi could answer, a transmission cut through their communication system. The language was unlike anything Ilara had ever heard, a symphony of whistles, clicks, and harmonics. But Lumi understood, its skin paling to a sickly gray as it listened. What is it? Ilara asked, concern evident in her voice. Lumi turned to her, its eyes dimmed with worry. My people, in danger. Great sickness spreads across Lumina. Many die. They ask, beg for help. Ilara's mind raced. She was just one human on a small exploration vessel, faced with a planet-wide crisis on an alien world. It was far beyond anything she was trained for. But as she looked at Lumi, saw the pain and hope in its eyes, she knew she couldn't turn away. Tell them we're coming, she said firmly. We'll do whatever we can to help. As they descended through Lumina's atmosphere, Ilara gasped at the sight below. The planet's surface was a tapestry of bioluminescent structures, entire cities that seemed to pulse with life. But interspersed among the beauty were dark patches, areas where the light had dimmed or gone out entirely. They landed in what appeared to be a central plaza of the largest city. As soon as the ship touched down, they were surrounded by Lumi's people. They were similar in appearance to Lumi, but with a dizzying variety of colors and patterns on their skin. Ilara stepped out of the ship, Lumi at her side. The crowd fell silent, staring at her with a mixture of fear, curiosity, and desperate hope. One of the aliens stepped forward, its skin a deep royal purple. It spoke, its voice a complex melody that Ilara couldn't hope to understand. But Lumi translated. This is Harmony of Stars, our world's lead scientist. Lumi explained. She asks why you have come. And if you bring help. Ilara straightened her shoulders, acutely aware that she was the first human these beings had ever seen. My name is Captain Ilara Vance, she said, Lumi translating her words into song. I come from a planet called Earth. We found Lumi imprisoned by someone else. We freed them, and they guided us here. We've come to help, if we can. Harmony of Stars trilled a response, which Lumi translated with growing excitement. She says they've never encountered beings like us before. She asks if we might share our knowledge, our biology. She thinks the key to fighting the sickness might lie in a species the sickness has never encountered before. Ilara nodded slowly, understanding the implications. Tell her I'm willing to help in any way I can, but I need to understand what we're dealing with first. Over the next few hours, Ilara was given a crash course in Luminan biology and the nature of the sickness ravaging their world. The Luminans were a symbiotic species, living in harmony with the bioluminescent bacteria that gave their cities and bodies their glow. But something had thrown that symbiosis out of balance, causing the bacteria to multiply out of control, overwhelming their hosts. Ilara's mind whirled with the complexity of the problem. But as she listened, an idea began to form. Lumi, she said suddenly, remember how we mixed your secretions with the plants from our hydroponics bay to create the space-folding substance? Lumi's eyes widened with understanding. Yes, interaction between different life forms. Created new thing. Ilara turned to Harmony of Stars. I think I might have an idea, she said, Lumi translating. But I'll need access to your labs and samples of the infected bacteria. What followed was a whirlwind of activity. Ilara worked tirelessly alongside the Luminan scientists, combining her knowledge of human biology with their advanced understanding of symbiotic life forms. They created cultures, ran simulations, and tested theory after theory. Days blended into nights, but Ilara barely noticed. She was driven by a sense of purpose unlike anything she'd ever felt before. This wasn't just about scientific discovery anymore. Lives were at stake, an entire civilization hanging in the balance. Finally, after what felt like both an eternity and no time at all, they had a breakthrough. By introducing carefully modified human gut bacteria into the Luminan symbiotic system, they were able to create a new balance. The human bacteria competed with the out-of-control Luminan bacteria, bringing the system back into equilibrium without harming the Luminan hosts. As the first trials proved successful, a wave of joy swept through the city. Luminans who had been on the brink of death began to recover, their skin glowing with renewed vitality. Ilara watched in awe as the dark patches on the planet's surface began to light up again, one by one. Harmony of stars approached Ilara, her skin shimmering with a complex pattern that Ilara had learned to recognize as profound gratitude. The Luminan scientist spoke, her voice a symphony of emotion. She says, Lumi translated, its own voice thick with feeling, that you have saved our world, Ilara, that we owe you a debt we can never repay. She asks if this might be the beginning of a lasting friendship between our peoples. Ilara felt a lump in her throat. She thought of Earth, so far away, and the wonders she had seen since leaving it behind. She thought of the vast, unknown galaxy that lay before them, filled with both wonders and dangers. And she thought of Lumi, the unlikely friend who had changed her life forever. Tell her, Ilara said, her voice steady and sure, that it would be my honor. Tell her that this is just the beginning. As she looked out over the glowing city, at the faces of the aliens she had helped save, Ilara felt a sense of purpose and belonging she had never known before. She had set out to explore the stars, to seek out new life and new civilizations. She never imagined she would find not just a new world, but a new home. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges she could scarcely imagine. But as she stood there, a human alone on an alien world, Captain Ilara Vance knew one thing for certain. The greatest adventures of her life were just beginning. Confrontation and resolution. Months had passed since Ilara's arrival on Lumina. The planet had largely recovered from the devastating illness, and a new era of cooperation between humans and Luminans had begun. Ilara had sent messages back to Earth, explaining her incredible journey and the new allies humanity had found among the stars. But their peace was not to last. One day, as Ilara was working with Harmony of Stars on integrating human and Luminan technologies, an alarm blared through the city. Lumi burst into the lab, its skin pulsing with agitation. Ilara, they found us. Lumi's voice was filled with panic. Ilara's blood ran cold. She knew immediately who they were. The mysterious beings who had imprisoned Lumi and its people. How? She asked, already moving towards the exit. Large ship entered system. Harmony of Stars explained, her melodious voice tense. Technology matches description of Lumi's captors. Ilara's mind raced. The Luminans were a peaceful species. They had no weapons, no defenses against an aggressive, technologically advanced enemy. But they did have something they didn't have before. Her. Gather your leaders, Ilara said firmly. We need a plan, and we need it fast. Within the hour, Ilara found herself in a room with the highest-ranking Luminans, explaining her idea. It was risky, borderline insane, but it was the best chance they had. We're going to use your space-folding technology, she said, Lumi translating her words into song. But this time, we're not running away. We're bringing the fight to them. The plan was audacious. They would create a massive space fold, large enough to encompass not just a ship, but the entire Luminan homeworld. They would jump the planet itself to the vicinity of the enemy ship, catching them completely off guard. Once we're there, Ilara continued, We'll use a concentrated burst of the symbiotic bacteria we developed to cure your illness. If I'm right, it should overwhelm their ship systems, giving us a chance to board and confront them directly." The Luminan leaders exchanged glances, their skin flickering with a mixture of fear and determination. Finally, Harmony of Stars spoke for them all. "We trust you, Ilara of Earth. We will do as you suggest." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Every Luminan on the planet contributed their bioluminescent energy to power the spacefold. Ilara and Lumi worked with the scientists to prepare the bacterial weapon. As the enemy ship drew closer, Ilara felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it, the moment that would determine the fate of not just Lumina, but potentially Earth as well. "Ready?" she asked Lumi, who stood beside her in the control center. Lumi's skin pulsed with resolve. "Ready." Ilara took a deep breath. Now, the world seemed to stretch and compress all at once. Stars blurred into streaks of light, and for a moment, Ilara felt as if she were everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Then, with a jolt, reality snapped back into focus. And there, filling their view screen, was the enemy ship. It was massive, easily dwarfing anything Ilara had ever seen, its hull covered in strange, organic-looking protrusions. "Fire the bacteria," Ilara commanded. A stream of luminescent particles shot from Lumina towards the enemy vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly at first, but with increasing speed, the lights on the ship began to flicker and die. "It's working," Lumi trilled excitedly. "Their systems are shutting down." Ilara allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Now for Phase 2. Lumi, you're with me. Harmony of Stars. Keep the planet safe. We're going in." Using a small shuttle equipped with Luminan technology, Ilara and Lumi boarded the now powerless enemy ship. They made their way through dark corridors, the walls pulsing weakly with dying bioluminescence. Finally, they reached what appeared to be a control room. And there, they found them, the beings responsible for so much suffering. They were tall, spindly creatures with multiple limbs and compound eyes. They regarded Ilara and Lumi with a mixture of fury and fear. One of them stepped forward, speaking in a language that sounded like grinding metal. To Ilara's surprise, she found she could understand it. The Luminan spacefold must have affected her brain somehow. "You dare to attack us?" the alien hissed. "We are the Harvesters. We take what we need to survive. It is our right." Ilara stood tall, her voice steady. "No, you don't have the right to imprison and torture sentient beings. You don't have the right to destroy entire civilizations for your own gain." "What would you have us do?" another Harvester asked, its voice tinged with desperation. "Our own world is dying. We need the energy of other species to survive." Ilara felt a pang of sympathy, but she didn't let it show. "There are other ways that don't involve destruction and suffering. We can help you, but first, you have to stop this. You have to make amends." The Harvesters looked at each other, chittering in their strange language. Finally, the leader turned back to Ilara. "And if we refuse?" Ilara's eyes hardened. "Then we'll have no choice but to stop you. Permanently. You've seen what we can do to your technology. Don't make us use it against you directly." For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly, the Harvester leader lowered its limbs in a gesture of submission. We will consider your words." In the days that followed, a tense peace was negotiated. The Harvesters agreed to release all their prisoners and cease their destructive harvesting practices. In return, Ilara promised to work with both Luminan and Earth scientists to find a solution to the Harvesters' energy needs. As Ilara stood on the surface of Lumina, watching the Harvester ship depart, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Lumi stood beside her, its skin glowing with contentment. "What now, Ilara?" Lumi asked. Ilara looked up at the stars, a smile playing on her lips. Now we've got a whole galaxy to explore, wrongs to right, and bridges to build between species. Our journey's just beginning, Lumi. As news of their victory spread across Lumina and via subspace communications to Earth, Ilara knew that the universe would never be the same. Humanity had taken its first real steps into a larger, more complex galactic community. There would be challenges ahead, misunderstandings to overcome, and new wonders to discover. But as she stood there, a human on an alien world with an alien friend by her side, Captain Ilara Vance felt ready for whatever the universe had in store. The stars were calling, and she was ready to answer.